Yesterday, we needed to get our washer and dryer replaced in our home. And the repair guys were coming with the new washer and dryer. And my wife called my daughter, who's 17, and said, the repair guys are coming and I need you to handle this. I need you to take the lead and handle this. And she prepared her for it, what to expect and what to do for these people to come in and take the old washer and dryer and install a new one. Okay? And that's a big thing for us because we've always believed, and we did this with all three of our kids, that we needed to prepare our kids to be able to stand on their own by the time they were 18 and they were leaving home. Whether that meant calling the doctor and making your own doctor's appointment, to learning to drive, to dealing with repair people, and being able to cook for yourself. You know, that's the basic things it takes to be an adult and survive. So it's been a big thing for us. And so yesterday, this was really my daughter's first time having to deal with repair people on her own. Now, I was home, so she wasn't totally alone, but she had to go to the door. She had to answer the door. She had to make sure that they knew what was supposed to be done, and she agreed. And she had to supervise the entire process. Now, let me be honest with you. You know, this is our third child, right? And we've gone through these things, and there's a lot of failure involved. There are a lot of times, there are a lot of bad meals. There were a lot of failed appointments of trying to call someone and set up an appointment and not doing it right, et cetera, et cetera. There were a lot of failed opportunities that happened through training these kids to be able to stand on their own. But in the end, just like yesterday, the washer and dryer got installed, and I was there and coached her through the process because it didn't go the way it was supposed to. And so now she had to improvise and think, and it changed. So coached her through the process, and she still dealt with the repair people and got the job done. Matter of fact, I got this washed, got the job done. Okay. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. That's great and all, but for so many of us, we struggle with that when it comes to our businesses. Maybe we could do that with our kids, but how do we delegate in our businesses? How do we delegate stuff in our business? Most of us don't. Most of us as business owners have the hardest time delegating. And we blame it on a whole bunch of things, but really and truly, it comes down to two things. It comes down to two things. Okay? The first one that it comes down to is you're not okay with mistakes. You're not okay with mistakes. Now, very often you point the finger at the staff and say you can't trust them or they can't do. But the truth of the matter is, if you really examine yourself, you're not okay with someone else making a mistake on your dime. You're not okay. And then number two, and this is the bigger one actually, this is the one that truly is the issue. You don't communicate well. And your poor communication leads to the failure and the mistakes, which then leads to your frustration, which then leads to you saying you can't trust them or that they're incompetent, and then you just taking the whole thing back and doing it all yourself and not delegating. So let's talk about communication. Let's talk about communication. This is an art form as much as it is a science. And it's something that you're going to have to learn. And you have to be okay, again, with the failure and realize when the staff messes up, it's because you didn't communicate what was needed to be done well. Now, let's take a look at what my wife and I did with our daughter yesterday, okay? And I want to teach you something that I learned from Richard Lindner, okay? And that's the 10-80-10, 10-80-10. So here's how it works. My wife did what? She called, told my daughter, hey, repair guys are coming. and this is what I need, and this is what I expect, and this is what needs to be done. This is how to prepare the house, and this is the work that they're supposed to do. So when you're going to go delegate a task, the first thing you need to do is you need to do the first 10%. And that first 10% is the communication. Getting the communication right so that you're actually communicating what's supposed to be done, what the outcomes are, what your expectations are. That you communicate clearly and that you and your staff are on the same page and that you know that before they start work. Then they go off and do the 80%. They go off and do the 80%. And then before it's done, they come back to you with the final 10%. And you come back in at the final 10%. That's when you get to check. That's when you get to come in and see, okay, we need to course correct here. We need to tweak this. Or, man, it was done right. Whatever that looks like. 10, 80, 10. This is how you start to master the communication in delegation. This is how you will be able to learn to manage yourself in delegation and that feeling of they're going to screw this up or I'm not okay with failure, because you're going to be involved enough in the process that before it's done, you're going to be able to course correct if need be. But the thing that I need you to hear, and it's so very clear, and so very clearly, is this. It's about that first 10%. We, as business owners, we, as managers, need to be able to communicate this 10% more effectively. So when you communicate that 10% and then you ask for feedback, a feedback loop from your staff, okay, what do you understand that I'm saying? And they don't understand, that's not a moment to get frustrated. That's the moment to ask, okay, how did you come to that conclusion? How did you reach that from what I said? Because what they're saying to you is you're not communicating in a language that I understand. It is our job to communicate in a language that they understand. It's not their job to understand our language. So in that first 10%, when you ask for that feedback loop and they don't understand, figure out how they interpreted what you said and then how you need to reformulate what you said so that they understand. It's your fault, not theirs. It's our fault always. It's our fault. Same thing on the backside in that final 10%. If they got all the way through to 80% and you got to that final 10% and there are errors, there are mistakes, this is not the time to point a finger, and this is not the time for you to get frustrated. This is the time for you to once again ask, okay, how did you get here? Because there were assumptions that they made that caused them to take a wrong direction and do the wrong thing. And those assumptions that they made were because you in the beginning did not communicate those assumptions away. And that, my friends, is our role. So when they screw up, it's on us. It's not on them. Stop pointing the finger at them and saying that they suck or they whatever, and understand that we have to communicate better in order for them to perform better.